Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series where I take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. This video I'll be reviewing the supplement Joy of Monster Cooking Devilish Desserts, designed by Chris Boudreau and Lex Mandrake for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. A review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider using my affiliate links for your online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Manuel, Basil, Christopher, Dave, Star Loverly, and Gaston. And Gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy Numa, Marcos, Dave, Vicente, Gilberto, Adam, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Ross, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Fatboy619, Scalenia, Nick, and Party McButterpants. Thank you all very much for your support. So to answer your immediate questions, yes, this is a actual cookbook. Yes, it is a joke. It is also a joke cookbook. And yes, it does have some functional things that you could add to your game. It is all of those things. I have not reviewed or read through the original Joy of Monster Cooking. This is a follow-up to that, kind of a... The designers call it, I guess, like a standalone sequel, if you could say that, but it seems to kind of lack the actual cooking rules that presumably were in the original. The whole thing is about devils. It's Devilish Desserts isn't just a play on words. It actually has to do with cooking devils into your food, like using like imp poison and barbed devil like interiors, like muscle mass and skins, and like chain devil blood and all that stuff. It gets real ghoulish and real macabre, but it's written in a really delightfully fun, humorous style that I enjoyed. Like basically every cookbook and food blog, it is written in a very personable first-person style. Weirdly, so many products I review, they have it's somebody's so-and-so's whatever. It's, I don't know, Jeremy Ticklebottom's Cauldron of Stuff. And then, they'll have Jeremy will write a little forward and then nothing, there'll just be nothing else. It'll just be, they just want to inject that personality on the cover and then not have that actual character come into play during the actual content. Here it's the opposite, where you've got the character here, which is this chef who is in the Nine Hells working for Mr. Red, which I like that, and actually follows a bit of a story here that by the end recipe, they've escaped from hell, and they're talking about how they've cooked this magnificent dish and made this like contract deal and got out, which is great. It's just a really fun read. But I don't know who this character is. Like, they never identify themselves, or there's no name written anywhere. There's no, as you can see here, there's not really any art to represent this character. So it was very odd because it feels like they did the hard work of making actually good writing and including this very fun personality, in universe personality to write from, and they didn't actually like name the character or give it a face or a name or anything like that. So I thought that was very strange, and just the fact that that would have been the easy thing to add to me would be to add a name on there and put a little face or something. As you can see, the layout is not great, and it's disappointing too because I feel like a cookbook is something where you need like some good art, you need to show off your dishes, you need to have a nice attractive layout, some good background, make it look good because you're doing a cookbook, which, not to disparage, food blogs and cookbooks and things, but the presentation is a big deal for that stuff. I mean, a huge part of all that stuff is people, we're just stupid human beings and we need to see that picture. It's hard to get a grip on like what things are going to look like. So, I mean, think about if you were looking at I guess high-class restaurants do that, where it's just the menu is just, very, very plain, but you go to like a Chili's or something and you're getting all kinds of pictures everywhere because that's what we're looking at going, I want this. So I feel like this was a big knock against this product, is just I'm not a fan of the kind of lack of presentation here, and especially if you're doing like a cookbook thing where it's just kind of, most of it is just kind of fun to read, but not really like functional information, in other words, for a DM to use. Basically, all the information you could use from this supplement is the ending little gray, which is really ugly looking, sidebar here, which includes the actual dish. Now, this is really good stuff. What it does, basically, when you make this dish, which as you can see here, they have full introductions, which could probably use some paragraph breaks, and then an actual recipe where it's like, here's the step-by-step, you're pouring the batter, you're cooking it in the oven, you're doing all these things, and that's like, okay, you're just kind of going through the motions. But the introductions are very fun. They're very well written. I enjoyed them a lot. But none of that is functionally useful for the DM unless for some reason your players are working in a kitchen in hell or something. That could come up. There's like a story idea. What is useful are the actual dishes, and the designer does a good job of making it so every single dish, if you consume it, which they're all made out of literal devil parts, they grant you a positive ability and a negative ability to kind of accurately portray that theme of the fiendish contract, where people make deals with devils, and obviously for ostensibly good reasons, but of course they come with some pretty nasty side effects. In this case, that's the whole deal. So, and they're all based on the ingredient. So for a Bone Devil Brisset, I'm not gonna pronounce half these things, I'm not that fancy. If you consume this type of pie, I think, you gain the Bone Devil's tail, which is that big like kind of scorpion-looking tail that can poison, and you actually get it as an attack you can use, 10-foot range, 3d6 poison damage. It's got all the rules there for it. But as a negative, you have to make a con saving throw, or you gain the poison condition. And this one lasts for 8 hours. All of them last different lengths of time, I think, presumably based on the how powerful maybe the demon is. Some of them are like an hour, some of them are a day. Just kind of depends. And then the Orphan Flan, this one lasts for an hour. And the positive ability is you gain the Orphan's ability to basically go invisible at will, which I think the Imp one can do that as well. And at the negative ability is you gain their self-explosion whenever they hit 15 hit points or fewer. They explode within 30 feet, dealing fire and thunder damage, which is a very funny. And you could turn that into a positive, technically, if you were the frontline melee and charge into people. That'd be pretty fun. So I think it's a good balance, and I like the way that it makes it so you might want to eat that stuff, you might not. You could have your players even roll to decide if it would be a good idea to eat this or not, and they would probably, smart Dan would be like, well, it's part of the devil contract. Like you're gonna end up with some good effects and some bad effects. But what's lacking here is there's no rules for actually cooking these dishes. Now, I looked at the description for Joy of Monster Cooking, and it sounds like that one does have rules. And you even look at the foreword here, and it seems like, or the intro, the only rule we get is to put on top of what I guess would be the rules already in place from the main product, which here is if you're literally cooking the dish in hell, then you can set the DC, or basically whatever roll presumably your players make, which again, I don't know what the rules are because they're not here. That's an additional effect that happens when you're cooking that dish in hell. So it just, in this case, if you roll between 12 and 17, basically nothing different happens. You still gain the positive and negative effects from the recipe. If you roll lower, though, you could end up getting a flaw, including even a permanent flaw, which is just like you're paranoid or you're manipulative or something, or quick to anger. And if you manage to roll really, really well, then you could remove a flaw from a previous dish. That's the only rule that's included here. So I feel like we're definitely missing the main rules. And if this is, it does mention this is supposed to be a companion piece, but also if you're going to release this as a separate product, at least include the basic like cooking rules. You don't have to include obviously everything you did with the first one. But I didn't think this was for somebody like me who only read Devilish Desserts, which granted probably is going to be very, very few people. You're probably going to look at the main one first. This was lacking in the actual cooking rules department. But as much as the introductions, the recipes, and we could make jokes about food blogs all the time, where you look up a recipe for something and you just have to scroll through the whole recipe maker's life story and things. But I mean, that's it's part of the whole gig. That's what you're doing, and some of those can be fun. Most of them are not, but some of them can be fun. In this case, I really did enjoy reading all of these introductions. I thought they were exceptionally well written. They were captivating. They were evocative. I really liked this chef character. I like this writing style a lot. I would like for this designer to give me more stuff. Basically, I want to explore more of what this designer has provided just based on the written stuff, even if I'm not a big fan of the actual cookbook stuff. And the step-by-step process is literally written pretty much straight. Like, it's just again, you're cooking, you're mixing batters, you're doing all that. That's pretty much normal. But the introductions is what really sells me. For example, he describes how in one scene the devils would tear into each other, eat each other basically, but especially they would eat the barb devils. And he was like, well, why is that the case? There's nothing left of the barb devils. So I invoked Mr. Red's authority to cut through the fracas and get my samples, a small perk of the job. To my surprise, the barbs weren't bones, they're more like fingernails with a thick shelled protein encasing a crunchy interior. An alarmingly tasty interior. I understood the fervor. And while standing in an endless field of devil corpses, ankle deep in blood, the fiery sky above me, devil barbs in my hands and mouth, my delusional mind thought of the holidays. These would be good in a winter solstice basket, I thought at that moment, near to madness, so I rolled with it. Devil bits in nougat, why not? It's your grandma's new favorite, she just doesn't know it yet. Like, that's just fun, and it repeats like that throughout all these different little, and there's 8 of these recipes. They're just really fun. I enjoyed reading them for what it's worth. I thought it was just a fun read, even though that's might not come into play in your actual game. The only thing that you're actually might be using from a functional standpoint are just these very small little, sidebar things, which could be condensed into probably like a page or two, honestly. The very final one has his actual story about how he's able to escape, which, again, this is, even if you're going to do this kind of format layout here, you gotta have some paragraph breaks in here. That's too much for a wall of text. It just doesn't look good, and you got this huge white space. Like, none of this looks good, and it's too bad because the writing is very, very good, and the functional, I guess, magic items, do we call them, of the actual dishes themselves are very good. Like, I like the way they pull from the things that they're being cooked from, and they've got some neat ideas in there. And that would be a good idea for if your players are in hell playing through, Descent into Avernus, and you want to make a little bit of an absurd thing and have like a cafe in hell, with devil servers, and they're just, and you can offer all these messed up like ghoulish treats. That would be a fun idea. Or if you're just in a regular city and you've got a very suspicious, dark, ties to the underworld kind of cafe on the surface world, and they've, sourced their ingredients from nefarious sources, you could use these things for that too. But what I'm not seeing here is a way for the players themselves to actually make these ingredients, which you'd think, given the fact that it's a freaking cookbook, that would be a big focus, is that your players can actually make these things. And I like the idea of almost like the Monster Hunter thing, where you take ingredients from slain enemies and turn that into like items or things that players can use. One of the best examples that we've done in the past is like dipping your arrows. You just killed a wyvern or something. You could dip your arrows in there. Now you've got poison arrows. Something like that. Or you can use some kind of creature parts to make, some kind of, I think I did like a rainbow shell into a shield from what do you call it? The snail that does the reflect shit. I can't think of it right now. The snail that can reflect all those flail snail. That is flail snail. You can turn that into items. So I like that idea. And it seems like that was the point of this, was that you can kill these certain demons, you gain those monster parts, and now you can cook with it, which would be a really neat little side event for like a character who was like specialized in like alchemy or mixing things together. But it doesn't have the rules here for that, which I think is a big misstep. It has the literal step-by-step ingredients, but are you telling me we're just supposed to go through the motion of like role-playing this and not have any kind of dice rolls or anything? But then you've got those variant rules at the beginning that's like, here's the DC. So it's lacking in the actual rules for that, and it's lacking in the presentation, which is a bummer because I think the actual final result, the items themselves are good, and I think the writing is a lot of fun, honestly. All right, let's go over my pros and cons for Joy of Monster Cooking Devilish Desserts. Pros: the recipes are darkly humorous, evocative, and fun to read, unlike, for example, most food blogs. Recipes: pro, great use of its devilish theme. It's called Devilish Desserts, and they are literally made from devils and do a cool job with the items, which is the other pro. Consuming dishes have positive and negative effects based on their fiendish progenitors. That's a really neat idea where all the different fiends, in fact, I had to literally look some up because I wasn't like familiar with Orthans, for example. I think it was a Mordenkainen's enemy, and it does look at the NPC stat block and pull abilities from that into the item itself. So even if your characters, which adds to that, if your characters defeat that enemy and harvest those parts, and then they may have an idea of what kind of abilities they would get from it. That's a really cool reflection. Cons: the plain, unattractive layout with no color really sucks a lot of the joy out of this cookbook. And the other con is that it lacks the actual cooking rules, which would presumably be found in the main Joy of Monster Cooking book. But here, all I get are variant, like, infernal rules that don't make much sense because I haven't read the actual cooking rules. Final verdict, while the dishes themselves could be condensed into about 2 pages, the introductions and recipes in the Joy of Monster Cooking Devilish Desserts are deliciously funny and enjoyable to read. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson, and you can follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.